let's continue on and talk about the Irish 24 class for a second. I think the last couple of times I've asked you, well, what's left to do for the Irish in this 24 class? Two words that always came up were Gerby Lambert, the offensive tackle from Massachusetts. Well, we've checked that off the to-do list because he is verbally committed to the Fighting Irish. So is your checklist getting pretty short at this time?
It is. So Notre Dame has 23 commits, which ranks number 9 in the country per the industry rankings. So now it's like, who is still out there that we think we can flip that we absolutely love? And right now there are 4 names. So Notre Dame was also in pursuit of Davis Andrews, the Mormon 2-year mission kid. He committed to Utah Monday night. Notre Dame would have liked to have him, but it's not really that big of a loss. He wouldn't even got here till 2026. So there's really 4 names right now, and I wrote about this in the Gold Standard article Monday. So if you want even more in-depth information, please head to the website blueandgold.com. You can check that out. Caleb Beasley at Lipscomb Academy in Nashville. Interesting note, Darren. Deuce Knight, Notre Dame's quarterback commit in the 2025 class, left George County High School in Lucedale, Mississippi, where he was, to transfer to Beasley's high school, and they're actually pretty good friends. So, Knight's now back at George County, but now instead of like Knight going to Tennessee with Beasley, could now Knight get Beasley to flip to Notre Dame? It's possible, not ruling it out. The 2 parties are in communication, that being the Notre Dame staff and Beasley, but how likely it is, I would say it's probably unlikely, but Notre Dame is still working on him. Keep an eye on Carter Nelson from Ainsworth, Nebraska, and a Cornhusker commit who there's some good and some bad here for Notre Dame. I think the good is that Mitchell Evans is looking fantastic. That you can very much say, hey, Michael Mayer declares to the draft, is a high draft pick, and then boom, we replace him with Mitchell Evans, and then we can go from Mitchell Evans to you, Carter Nelson. Like it's easy for that. And then Nebraska looks awful on the football field. That's what's going for Notre Dame here. The bad is that like his family is just like die hard Nebraska fans. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Carter Nelson's been going to Nebraska games since he came out the womb. Like this kid is a Cornhusker through and through in that sense. So it's going to be tough, but I would not doubt Notre Dame here. I just keep a close eye on it. I would peg it as a long shot. I know I'm kind of giving you guys mixed signals here. Like, Mike, can Notre Dame get him or not? I'd peg it as a long shot unless he actually visits campus. Like, if he gets to campus, all bets are off, and I would peg it as like, yeah, Notre Dame's got as good of a shot as anybody at that point. So just keep an eye on that. Follow the visits with these committed kids. When they're committed elsewhere, it's kind of tough to gauge, well, do they have a realistic shot? If they visit, that kind of gives you a good indication. And one player who did visit Notre Dame recently is Mondi Ogboko, the official visitor for the Ohio State game. He's a Georgia commit, beefy interior defensive lineman. Notre Dame sources kind of feel like the Irish have a chance to pull off this flip, but there's still a battle to continue on here up until signing day, Darren, which is only 2.5 months away, if you can believe it. It's kind of crept up on us. So Notre Dame battling for him. He took the official visit. That tells us he's serious. You wouldn't go and do that unless you're really looking at that school. So we'll continue to watch him. And then lastly, probably the longest shot of the group, I don't believe that Notre Dame's having much good dialogue or productive dialogue, I should say, with Justin Scott, the 5-star defensive lineman from Chicago who's committed to Ohio State. It's at least a name we're throwing out there. If something were to happen to Ohio State, their defensive line coach, Larry Johnson, leaves or something, something like that, like maybe, but I think it's going to be tough for the Irish.
Mike, you're pretty good at asking yourself questions. I feel like my job's in jeopardy. I mean, it could be Mike and Mike. That might be copyrighted, but we can come up with another name. So I better be good on my next question because, by golly, Tyler Horka and I, part of Hey Horka Mondays on the Blue and Gold YouTube channel at 3 Eastern time, we're just kind of chatting away, and all of a sudden Horka throws out that, that Singer guy's got this Marcus Freeman will be the defensive coordinator possibly next year. And I'm like, okay, I need context. I need a little more context. You just can't say that. So there's a whole lot more to it. So what is your Marcus Freeman defensive coordinator theory?
Okay, I don't even know if you can call it a theory. And I had popped off the show. I was watching you guys, then I popped back on. You guys were talking about me. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? all I've said before, and I said this on a show, and that's where Jorge got it from. I was like, if Golden leaves after the season, I would guess this is Golden's last season at Notre Dame. Not because I think he's doing a bad job, because I don't know if he wants to be a college defensive coordinator going on a third year. I mean, there's probably a reason he went like 15 years not coaching in the college ranks. So he might get some group of 5 job or like a lower level P5 job or go back to the NFL, something like that. And if he were all that it is that if he were to go Golden, what about the possibility that Freeman just takes defensive coordinator play calling duties? Like that's all it is. Like, what if he just kind of assumes that role? Again, I'm not like saying that this is happening or these are discussions. It was really just a theory that each time I throw it out there to people I'm on a show with, they do exactly what you did. Let me think about that. It's an interesting thing to kind of ponder, like, because then it could be like some kind of, situation where like a Mike Mickens gets a promotion to defensive coordinator, but isn't necessarily calling plays. Like, it just could be interesting, Darren. It's I don't even know if I'd call it a theory, but it's just something to ponder. Like, could Freeman, which I don't think it's a long shot to say Golden leaves after the season at all. Again, I think it probably happens. But do they hire a true defensive coordinator? Or does Freeman say, you know what, in year 3, I want to call the plays? I don't know. It's interesting.
I guess the first thing that comes to mind, I think it's easier for an offensive coordinator to be head coach compared to defensive coordinators, because there are so many more decisions you make as offensive when you're offensive coordinator because of, 4th and 1. Defensive coordinator might be talking to someone, hey, we got a decision to make. So that comes to mind. And I love Marcus Freeman as defensive coordinator. I think, Mike, that's a great idea. I think he's a great defensive mind. I would be thrilled about that. My hesitation is I want to see how the season would pan out in terms of decision-making late in games. I mean, there's a lot on your plate as a head coach. So I think I'd like to see him balance that a little bit more down the stretch here, and then we'll see what happens after the season. But that's really interesting. That had not crossed my mind.
One quick thought, Darren, did you watch that like 5-minute video, the Irish Access thing where you had the coaches on the headset were talking? I thought this was really interesting. Did you catch the part where one of the coaches asked Freeman, like, hey, what do we do right here? Like, do you want to run it or something like that? Do you remember that there's a little part where one of the coaches said, Free, what do you want to do here? Last year with Reese, it was more of a Tommy Reese is the head coach of the offense. I don't know if those words were ever said publicly, but like that was my understanding. I liked in that video, it kind of said like, oh, there's Parker's not the head coach of the offense. Like Freeman has his say there. So my point in bringing that up is I wouldn't want the offensive coordinator, assuming it's Jared Parker again next year, to be the head coach of the offense. I'm kind of with you on that wavelength that, you want him still involved on those kind of things.
But as defensive coordinator, I think Marcus, track record shows he is top of the line. Absolutely.